Good evening, guys. How's everybody doing? I'm going to take a quick run on KartKraft tonight. I'm wanting to get into this game since the new force feedback update. I want to try it out and try and dial in the Fanatec DD wheels. So it won't be a long one tonight, but I just want to take this for a run and see how it is. Apparently there's been, quite a big update on the force feedback, and a few things have changed since then. So let's get into the settings right away. Alright, so first thing I found out from the Discord channel is that there's only really two settings now that have any impact. Force feedback skip steps is no longer used, so that will be being removed in the next update. The filtering will be gone as well, so that's no longer needed. The only two settings that have any impact will be for the minimum force and strength. So pretty much all this is actually inactive. It's not going to be working. It actually doesn't work now. So when you're working with a direct drive wheel, the minimum force should be at 0, because that's really for gear-based wheels, so I wouldn't be using minimum force at all. So keep that at 0. So you really, when you're working with a direct drive wheel, you're down to just the strength. And I'm going to leave this at what it was originally when I, before this update. I've always pretty much been running this at 50%. So I'm not going to do any changes on the wheel. I'm just going to go with the exact same settings that I had before, the exact same setting on here, knowing that skip steps is no longer effective, and minimum force is the only thing, which doesn't really serve any purpose with my wheel. So if we look at the steering, the one thing I've tried to run this at 180, because it says here the kart runs at 180 degrees of steering. I find that when I'm running this at 180 degrees of steering, maybe it's because I'm running the Formula V2 wheel, I find it's just really difficult to control. Maybe it's just a matter of getting used to it, going from driving GT cars or driving Formula cars to driving a kart. I mean, obviously it's quite an extreme difference between the two. So what I'm going to do, I'll leave this again at 1080. If I feel that something has changed there, I'll come back in and change that as well. Haven't changed anything on the pedals, left all these settings exactly the same. My bindings, the bindings are pretty basic, as far as you don't have like Motec displays and things like that to worry about headlights or any of that stuff. So it's really basic of looking back, looking up, left, right, cycling your camera, basic things like that. So if you do have, obviously you see here the Fanatec DD wheel's not showing up yet in here. So you just basically, if you don't see your wheel in here, just go directly with generic wheel direct drive and then start binding based on that. So let's get in, and like I said, I'll take you through the settings that I have on my wheel. Like right now, I can run through and tell you exactly what I have on the wheel before we make any changes. So let's go into drive. So right now I'm in the beta for the online, so I can access online, and it goes every few minutes. So let's see what's the next one. At 9:40, the next one will be at 10 o'clock, which is in about 15 minutes, so we can come back in and try that one out there. But right now let's do time trial. I absolutely love time trial on this. It's just this basic head-to-head setting, so it just keeps pitting you against the next person in the list. I think the last time, I can't even remember when the last time I did this one, a while ago. So I'm up at 740. So so we'll start this one here. We'll get on the track. I'll take my plain black one. This is a gray one, but we'll keep it classic. Go plain black, dry. I'm not going to do any settings or any tunes here. And let's just see. So time 32.9 is what we have to beat. Pause here in a second. So one thing I'm not running, let's just pause that. So one thing I'm not running is the Fanalab. So I'm not using Fanalab with this because I want to go just directly with what the force feedback changes are and the direct drive wheel. I don't want to have anything in between. Let's just get the audio down. We don't need too much audio. It gets kind of redundant after a while, but anyway. So, like I said, I'm just going with the direct drive wheel and the game. No Fanlab, nothing in between. So let's go through the basic settings of what I have right now. I have the game degrees of rotation set at 1080. So on my wheel I have it set at 1080 as well. Force feedback, right now I have it set at 45. So we'll see if I need to increase that or decrease that based on the new feedback or force feedback changes. Linearity, I have it off. Natural damper, I have it at 20. Natural friction is off and natural inertia is off. I have a feeling I might actually add a bit of inertia into this because I did notice, I fired this up a few weeks ago and or about a week ago, and I noticed that there was a bit of oscillating happening, so we'll see what happens with that. The interpolation at its standard 4, that's pretty much the default. The force effect intensity is at 100, and I know from the last time I played this, I dialed that down, so we'll see what it is right now. We'll try it out. Force effect at 100. Spring and damper 100 each. I know damper, I'll probably dial that down quite low because the wheel could get pretty heavy. So we'll leave that. The brake level indicator, nothing. We don't bother with that. Shock and, shock, I would tend to keep it off on this one because it does vibrate quite a bit. And brake force. So brake force, this one, I have it up quite high. So it's at 75 because if you go too low, you end up locking up really easily and you're just trying to gain control of the cart. So at 75 to 80, 85, around there is good. But I find when you get up to 85, 90, you have to really push hard to get that brake to, to actually take effect or to actually have any kind of braking effect. So you lose a little bit of sensitivity in there. So it's good to kind of dial it down so you have a good happy medium or good balance between the two. All right, so let's try this out and we'll see what we get out of this one. So I'll just take a few laps. See, even right now it's quite light on the wheel. So let's try this out. Yeah, I can feel quite a bit of noise in the wheel already. All right, so one lap in that already, and I can feel that there's a lot of noise in the wheel. So as far as the force feedback here, there's really nothing, no need to change anything. So it's all going to be on the wheel. That's the one thing about the update now. They've really simplified it so that it's all control. Everything's coming from your wheel and when you want to get the detail in it. So let's go in and just change a few different things and see what we can get. So the sensitivity, I'm not going to change that. I'll leave that at 1080 for now. Force feedback, I'll leave it at 45 for now. I think really where I need to kind of dial in a few things is the interpolation. So the interpolation in the Fanatec software or the Fanatec firmware helps to kind of soften out or smooth out those rough edges, but I don't think that's the main problem right now. Maybe it's just the intensity overall because you're getting a lot of noise in the wheel. So I'll take that down from 100. Let's just go a couple of big steps and see how much of a difference. So let's go from 80 to 60, or sorry, from 100 to 60. We'll go at 60 and we'll see if that makes a big difference without changing anything else. So let's try that. Okay, so that made a big difference. It softened it quite a bit. The only problem now is that I lost quite a bit of detail. So let's go back at the intensity. So the force feedback intensity, we went from 100 down to 60. So let's bring that back up to say, let's do 70 on that. And now let's dial in the interpolation. So let's bring the interpolation up to about 6 and see if that helps. Because I don't want to lose detail in what I'm feeling in the cart. but at the same time, I don't want it to be too abrupt. I want to have, you know, that nice fluid motion of going through the corners and not feeling these constant jerks in the wheel. So two changes we made now. We went up 10 in the interpolation or the force effect intensity, and we went from the interpolation to 6 now. So let's try that. Let's see. Okay, so let's work on a few more changes. So I'm happy with the sensitivity. I think that feels really good because I can do, like, I can turn the wheel just enough that I'm still feeling control of it. When I was dialing it down to 180, I felt that it was just too twitchy. So I like to have a bit more smoothness when I'm going through the corners and stuff. So we'll leave it at 1080. Force feedback, I still think it's okay there. Yeah, so I think that's fine. The linearity, we'll leave it off. Natural damper, I'm going to bring that up a little bit more and just get a bit more dampening in the wheel because I feel it's light in certain areas, so we'll do that. Natural friction, we'll leave it off. And natural inertia, I'm going to try and dial in maybe 5. Actually, let's go a little bit more, a little higher. It will go to about 10, so that'll give you a bit more weight in the wheel. We'll leave the natural friction off. I find when I put the natural friction on in conjunction with the interpolation and the force effect, you can start introducing a bit too much noise in there. So we'll leave that at force feedback intensity. I think that's still fine. We'll leave that. Now, the other thing is, I said at the beginning, that is I wanted to bring the damper effect down. So I find that the damper effect at 100 is a bit too much. Oops. So we're going to bring that down to, let's go really low. Let's try 10, and then we'll just dial it back up from there and see what that gives us. Let's go. So what you'll notice is because I've dialed in a bit of more dampening and a bit more of the inertia, you can see when I'm rolling the wheel I'm not getting any oscillation, so that's really good. So that's the one thing. Every time you win, you're going to defeat the next one and move up, start working on the next guy. So jump to 694. Do a lot better. Now I got to run a few laps, but all right. So we'll see what our next lap time is. Actually, we can we'll jump out and we'll do the time trials. We'll see where we are. Might as well, because I think there's one starting right now, so we can get in the multiplayer and see what that's like. $10. There we go, perfect timing. So we're the NTK Sony with the KZ2. Oh, this one's fun to get used to. You get a shift. So, and shifting with this, you got to let off the gas a little bit and shift every time. So, it's a bit of learning curve to get used to it, but it's a great kart to work to run around this track. So while we're waiting for that, with these settings now, 1080 at 40 force feedback, linearity still off, damper at 25, friction off, inertia at 10. Keep that at 10, I think it feels good. The interpolation, let's dial that. Actually, let's keep that at 6 and let's bring up the intensity back to 70. And everything else pretty much the same. Brake force is good. Alright, let's jump in and see what we got here. I'll take the monitor, it's the only one I got. So, run that. Actually, I have my gear shifter, so I'm going to use a gear shifter rather than my paddle shifters. This is a sensitive kart. It's an odd track. I've never been, I mean, I think I've ridden this once before, but gotta get used to the layout. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the pit. Oh, geez, every time I pause it, it's spinning out. I guess there must be a little bug in that. Okay, so we're just gonna, I find the brakes are locking up too easy, so let's bring that down. And we might bring that up a bit more. Okay, one sec, I just gotta understand this. So change the distribution of the braking force between the front and rear. Decrease this number to make the front brakes more powerful than the rear. Okay, so now we want to get less power in the front. So let's try it at 30. So remember, this is a beta multiplayer or beta online, so there's bound to be a few little bugs. So you can see there's network issues happening all the time. I think there's nobody in here. Nope. Are these working? No. Okay, so let's take this for a run. Let's try and see if we can just get a good lap time. Get used to this track. Actually, I have my gear shifter, so I'm going to use a gear shifter rather than my paddle shifters. This is a sensitive cart. It's an odd track. I've never been, I mean, I think I've ridden this once before, but gotta get used to the layout. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the pit. Oh, geez, every time I pause it's spinning out. I guess there must be a little bug in that. Okay, so we're just gonna, I find the brakes are locking up too easy, so let's bring that down. And we might bring that up a bit more. Okay, one second, I just got to understand this. So, change the distribution of the braking force between the front and rear. Decrease this number to make the front brakes more powerful than the rear. Okay, so now we want to get less power in the front. So let's try it at 30. So remember, this is a beta multiplayer, or beta online, so there's bound to be a few little bugs. So you can see there's network issues happening all the time. I think there's nobody in here. Nope. Are these working? No. Okay, so let's take this for a run. Let's try and see if we can just get a good lap time. Get used to this track. All right, let's get one more lap in. Maybe not. Well, that was actually fun. I haven't done that track for a while, so it's good to spend a bit more time on there trying to get a better lap time. I'm sure they can be much faster than that, but that was fun anyway. Get another little test in on the multiplayer aspect of it. Anyway, so let's just kind of recap where we are as far as the settings are concerned. So steering, I'm going to still keep it at 1080 because I find even at 1080 you can see there's just a bit of snap there, so it's better to get a bit more leverage with playing that. And so force feedback, I didn't change anything literally, just kept everything the way it was, leave it at 50%. And I don't think you would need to go any higher than that. I think it's fine at 50%, so we'll leave that like that. On the wheel, so the final settings on the wheel for now, probably tweak this and we'll go back to it again, but for now, sensitivity 1080 to match the game, force feedback at 40, linearity off, natural damper at 25. I think that's fine. I'm happy with it anyway. Natural friction off, natural inertia at 10. That can actually, you can probably even dial that down a little bit, maybe to 8, but I'll leave it at 10 for now. I think that's fine. The interpolation at 6. The force feedback intensity at 70. So at 60, it was just felt a little too numb. Felt like it was losing quite a bit of details. 70, I think, is, if I could do 75, it'd be perfect, but I think 70 is totally acceptable with this. With the carts anyway. In most games I run it at 80 or higher, 80 or 90 like that. So force, spring at 100 each. And damper, I brought it down to 10, so I think 10 is a good point to keep that at. So I think that works really well. And the only other thing to change, there's none of the other functions really work in this, but brake force, I think 70, and then just go in game and dial in your kart brake pressure if you want it higher or lower. So yeah, so that's my settings for that. I'm going to jump out and do a few things. I want to try a few different games. I want to get back into some AMS2, see what's going on in there, and maybe actually do a little bit of Formula 1. So that'd be pretty cool. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Like, follow, check out my YouTube on the grid, and if there's any content you want, just let me know and I'll be happy to share any settings or anything that I have. So appreciate it. All right guys, have a good night.